That's just not right. Twin Leopard Entertainment presents I've already talked about Final Flesh and Singapore Sling, two films that could easily be classified as sex comedies. So here's another one for you. Conspirators of Pleasure may be one of the strangest movies about sex, and it barely has any sex in it. That's definitely quite the feat, so let's talk about it. Conspirators of Pleasure is a movie by legendary Czech animator and director Jan Svankmajer. He may be best known for his short stop-motion animated films, which are also extremely weird, and definitely recommended. Every project that he has created has been extremely weird, and a review of any of his films would not be out of place on this channel dedicated to weird movies. Other notable feature films of his include Alice from 1988, Faust from 1994, and Little Otik from 2000, all recommended for fans of weirdness, especially Alice, one of the strangest adaptations of Alice in Wonderland, and Little Otik, a movie in which a tree stump fashioned into a baby comes to life. He also directed a couple of movies following Little Otik, Lunacy and Surviving Life, which, while entertaining enough on their own, aren't up to par with his former classics. Svankmajer has also released Insect, a movie which he claims will be his last, earlier this year. Judging by the trailer, it looks like a true return to form for the director. Conspirators of Pleasure may be my favorite feature film of his, just because of how ridiculous and fun it is. Saying that Conspirators of Pleasure has a plot is not entirely accurate. It's more of a collection of intertwined scenes based around a single concept, the pursuit of pleasure. We follow a collection of characters and follow their elaborate plans to realize their greatest fantasies, all of which are extremely out of the ordinary. With a few exceptions, none of the acts that these people get off of are explicitly sexual acts. In fact, the only character whose act involves masturbation is probably the least sexually deviant of all the characters. I already showed one of these acts of pleasure in the cold open, and I really want to avoid showing too many of these scenes, as part of the fun of the film is trying to figure out what these acts will be from the scenes of preparation. For instance, look at all that preparation that particular act took. All of the characters carry out their acts of preparation in secrecy and shame as if they were buying sex toys or condoms, even though no one in real life would be able to figure out what they were planning just from watching them do things such as rolling up bread into little balls. They carry out their preparations in silence. Indeed, the entire film has no dialogue whatsoever. The characters only communicate to each other in knowing looks. It seems likely that all of the characters know what each other character is doing, or at least suspects it, which may explain the conspiracy part of the title. This This begs the question, why don't they all just get together and have an orgy? My only answer to this is that they probably get off on the secrecy and how unique and personal their acts of pleasure are. Even still, some of the acts of pleasure could easily be seen as non-sexual in nature, with one of the acts of pleasure being suggestive of drug use instead of sex. There are, however, instances of overlap. For instance, one character's act of pleasure is dependent on his obsession with a weather lady on the news, who also has her own odd act of pleasure. This movie also has a main character whose act of pleasure involves the elaborate construction of a papier-mâché chicken map. His act of pleasure is so closely intertwined with his lust after another character that, in a surreal, enigmatic, and reality-bending twist, the two characters almost have something close to a relationship with each other, even though they enjoy the pleasures of that relationship in private. Papier-mâché Chicken Head Guy is the character who we spend the most time with and whose act of pleasure involves the most elaborate planning. When we are first introduced to this character, we see him buying pornographic magazines, but he does not masturbate to them. No, he takes those pornographic images and uses them as the base for his papier-mâché chicken head. The porn can't be seen in the finished product. Only the man knows that it is there. By focusing much of the runtime on the planning for each character's act of pleasure, Svankmajer does not showcase sex, but rather showcases creation and creativity, and as a result, art. It's an interesting representation of Freud's theory of sublimation, the unconscious transformation of unacceptable impulses into acceptable behavior. Perhaps Svankmajer is playing homage to his own creative process in the making of his films. Before I continue into spoiler territory in my discussion of the strange ending, which would surely ruin the experience for any first-time viewers, I'd like to give my final thoughts on the film. I think it is suffice to say that The Conspirators of Pleasure is a lot of fun and definitely qualifies as a weird movie. It's especially fun to watch with a bunch of friends, as long as they aren't prudes. It also manages to be an interesting satire on human sexuality and a silent comedy. I'd highly recommend it. Okay, spoilers coming in 3, 2, 1. For the most part, Conspirators of Pleasure isn't really surreal, and not everything that occurs is of the ordinary. Sure, we have bread going up the nose and things moving on their own, but for the most part, these elaborate plans could be carried out in real life. Which is why the surreal finale tips the film's overall weirdness into the stratosphere. Let's talk about Chicken Man and his neighbor. Both of them are obsessed with each other and both play out their fantasies using dummies of one another. The irony here is that they are both dominant and beat up their respective dummies. The woman doing so in a traditional dominatrix outfit and dungeon, and the man doing it in the chicken superhero costume for some inexplicable reason. Even though there is a mutual attraction, their fantasies unfortunately would never work in real life, so they have to use their dummies to play them out in private. What isn't clear from the film is whether they are collaborating in their affair, given that part of the Chicken Man's ritual involves the slaughtering of a chicken by the neighbor lady. The ending, in which it appears that what happened to the respective dummies is happening or going to happen in real life, adds to the confusion, especially given Chicken's man's look of fear but willing surrender to his upcoming torture from the supposedly dead neighbor. I really have no clue what to make of it. It definitely pulls the rug right out under from the viewer, just when they thought they knew what was going on. Another puzzle that the film throws at us near the end is the implication that the characters are trading their pleasures with one another, suggesting that each elaborate pleasure is not uniquely personal to each individual, further suggesting some kind of conspiracy in which the characters trade fetishes like swingers would trade partners. Perhaps Svankmajer is suggesting that at the completion of one project, one must move on to a new project in order to defeat boredom. Perhaps that's what this movie is really all about, the pursuit of hedonistic pleasures in order to liberate oneself from the boredom of everyday life. This is rather a dark interpretation to a really fun movie, but it does fit. Anyways, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more weird movie reviews, and don't forget to embrace the weirdness. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.